And just as I reached for the lug wrench, a car came across 4 lanes and hit where we were standing. And I really believe that Pastor saw the car coming and went and stopped me from getting hurt. He said, God is lucky. I didn't say anything. And he said, if he had taken both my parents, I would not love him. I have to claim that there is a God, there is heaven, there is Jesus, there is a second coming.
Akwaba Eba Jumedia Yatunidin, my story. And then we have a very special guest in our midst. I know Eba Betriche and Komo. Nayashana Brabo Munsem, a quine issue, Huna Wafem, Ewo my Ghana. In case when you may guest that, me guest, and where you bruni, Mami Fita, but what's not Ghana, any Africa for some time now. You know, Beshe, you better see our firm. Ewo Ghana ne din ede nana ya cha afi ne brofu din no so eye anase ubetimi nso asa afre no of mame Bryson mema akwaba
Eja yadasi
na oho te say
nyame dom ho ye now so e
nyame adom me se me ho ye pa utwi ne kapa o
pa Jimmy e just say brofo me fear ho a chepa meant me in kapa me very
the okay cry is even enough. All right. And then we have a lot to share. Yeah. So for Mami Bryson, kind of life, the pains that wakomu, at the beginning, but as he said, no, it's not that good. So as in the course of our conversation, it might turn into English, but Mofa Enche. Kakra obetimi aka no otwi no, she is going to say it. But before we go any further, no, so for Mami Bryson, my person obebo mpaye na oni bibi. Mpaye no my person obebo no otwi.
I will check that.
Okay,
your bone pie. Already, yan yankapon, nyami, Trajan pon kwami. Woma aba wonim hobrastia no. Yes, sir will say, Fayen boni chayan, and shirayan. Yes, sir will inshira obiara, our tia was some homida and numere. Namayanina, and tea and casse. Owoyan and finny, Saberi. Yes, sir will yesu dino. Amen.
Amen. So for Mami Bryson, yeah, that was say what me album pie no kama pa ochi. Why are they?
And yummy.
All right. Understand the trading upon its meaning and how it meant for you.
For me, it was a prayer. But when bad things began to happen in my life, it reminded me that God is like a strong tree that I can lean upon, and it will give me the strength. And so that stayed with me, yes. And the idea of Kwame and Miminimini, the whole idea that God was in Ghana, for all the years, and not because some Abrafo went there and told them. It was in their DNA. They kept Sabbath, they believed in God. And in fact, you may not know this, but I have a Nyami Dua here.
Oh, Nyami Dua.
And wow. So, say Woko Colombia, Nyami Dua.
Yes.
And because it reminds you that God is omnipresent. He is north and south, east and west. It also, when you put the egg here, it reminds the people in the town that whoever the leaders are, one day they will go, but God will always be here. So you must handle with care.
So for Mami Bryson, we know, say, you've been in Ghana for some time now. Na as Yasha say na ye kika tree ni adi What are some of the expressions, any bebu, those phrases that you still remember?
Ocho, ese se wakaise a chepa me
Mm-hmm.
feho, 1974, me firo bekwai, and she meant me ka papa, but me wirim fi, in Paningful sayings, proverbs, this year, maybe, I'm going to switch back and forth a little bit.
That's
I
fine.
going to the market in Bekwai. I
Mm-hmm.
was learning the language and I was trying to learn without being embarrassed. So I would talk to the ladies in the market. And one day in the market, a lady was giving me rice in from the tin. She was measuring it,
Mm-hmm.
and as the rice was going into my bag, I thought, that's not a full tin. She
Mm.
had cut the top of another tin, put it down inside, so I was
Mm-hmm.
getting a portion of the tin.
Mm.
And I said, Mami mpamcho, wokai impaning pu nakase,
Mm-hmm.
wosisi anansi a wosisi wohum. And
You
she just
mean,
started laughing. And then she told all the people in the market, "Oh, Breno Kachi, Okate, Wosisi Anansia, Wosisi Wohon." And after that, I got really good prices in the market and good food too. So I
I,
remember that.
I see,
And
but before you go any further, let me break it down. So the better the okay,
I'm sorry, I'm
no, that was
sorry.
perfect. So what's the free Ghana no was 1974. That was the last time I called Ghana.
Debbie, Miss Sanko in Prenum 5 times
Okay. Print.
over the years
Hmm.
because I'm sorry, because I'm from Kokofu, I go there and I pay my dues and I take part in the Day of Atonement
Hmm.
ceremony and the next day sitting with the Queen Mother's family. So I've actually been back 5 times since 1974, but
All
just for a brief time, a week or
hmm.
2 weeks. So
All
yeah,
right. All
but
right.
it's been a long time now. 2010, I think.
Yeah.
26. It's been 5 years since I've been there.
I see. So that means ukwana free watch it. Now back to the story and now we can we say ukoto emu and I know mo de abo asie so that you don't get the full cup. And now
Mm-hmm.
can say usisi anansia usisi o. Is that what you said?
I know quarry.
I know I there was at the said the bruni need to chill.
When you're on your TTMO, the whole market, I was so embarrassed.
In your seminar, who deliver here on 13 for 2020, you made mention that when you were going to Africa, you were expecting say a very village amount for Nnua so near the but when you go to the airport, you were surprised. Tell me what happened and how was your reaction?
When we were preparing, we had a 3-month-old baby. So
Mm.
we purchased drums, barrels for packing on the ship,
Mhm.
and we put things for every 3 months. You open the drum and take out the food, take out the clothes, because we read books, we heard stories. We totally expected to see, grass skirts, mud huts, and
Mhm.
walking and hammocks and all the rest.
Yes.
And we got to the airport. There were chauffeured limos. There, as we went to the city, there were beautiful homes.
Mm.
And the executive mansion. It was totally different.
Mm.
And really and truly, we never took a big shipment again because
Mm.
we used the furniture there. We ate the food from the market. I grew my own vegetables and a garden as well, and
Mm.
I sewed our clothes. We didn't, yeah, we never really took a big shipment from Abbotsford. Yeah.
I see. Let me ask this question. Can you say the Western world no paint Africa bad to the world now?
In the 60s and 70s, it
Mhm.
was my experience when I came back to the US that yes. And
Mm.
I also found that even people that I worked in the same country,
Mhm.
I can just tell you, I went to a hairdresser, okay?
Mhm.
And I was telling them how exciting it was to be in Ghana, going to, Accra and to Cape Kumasi, and how tour groups came and our students and Temperance and Nidohoasem and all of that. And they said, I'm so glad you came. There was
Mhm.
a lady here who just got her hair done, and she was telling how there is no food, and you go to the market, there's nothing, and she missed her. And I said, would you mind sharing her name? And they
Mhm.
did, and we lived 60 miles apart from each other in the same country. And it really struck me that this is amazing. So when people ask me to talk about West Africa or something like that, I choose a whole different approach because America needs to know, and outside the world. And I mean, you know as well as I do that God was in Ghana before any American or European went there. I personally believe that they're descendants of the Israelites who intermarried with the nomadic tribes from Ethiopia. I know you didn't ask me to say this. They came across the Sudanic Strait. They fought with the Berbers. They moved down into the forest land. And listening to the stories that my grandfather tells of the early days and the belief in God, the Sabbath, the Minidah from the Menominee, it's a total different world. And why I think what I learned is that many Abrafo think that they have to picture Africa that way in order to get money. And it really hurts me. In fact, I don't want to say something negative, but I can tell you before we came to Africa, the books I read, the pictures I thought I was looking at, it wasn't what I found at all.
All right. Now, about when did you finally decided to go back or to come back to the States?
After Jeannie was, after my eldest daughter had been bitten in Sierra Leone, at the same time, we had an invitation to go back to Ghana, and that's where we wanted to be. And so Pastor went to interview in North Ghana, and I was with my daughter at a hospital in Monrovia, in Liberia. And so I stayed with friends, and she was we were at the hospital actually, at the hospital in Monrovia. And they told me that she would never get well, and I didn't believe it. And my husband had a call to Tamale, so we decided to go, and we moved to Tamale. 10 months after she was bitten, we were in Tamale, and the second coup, 1978, and the doctor told me that there was no more medicine, and that coup was a different kind of coup than the 72 one, and those are all different stories, believe me. But after the officers from Burkina Faso came down, and I spent 2 weeks with them and teaching them English and so on, and my daughter was not doing well. So after 10 months, I said, the doctor is saying I need to take her to the U.S. So I took her to the National Children's Hospital in the U.S. And that begins another story. But Pastor, 3 months later, Pastor and my daughter came. My son came actually in January, and then Pastor and my second daughter, Akuya Manu, they returned to the U.S. I wanted to tell you that it was 10 months. She wasn't bitten, and we went back to the States. No, I didn't want to come to the States at all.
Right
we
away.
Stayed 10 months. We stayed 10 months because I didn't want to go. But it was the Ghanaian doctor who told me because of the coup, there was no medicine.
And how was your faith at that moment?
Well, I went to Konfanachi, the Korlebu Hospital. I went to the Korlebu Hospital in Accra.
Okay,
that's where I took her. Okay. And then we went 400 miles up into Tamale, and I was working with a doctor there. It was really sad.
I see.
And I didn't know. But what I'm saying is that we didn't want to leave West Africa, but because of the coup and the doctor, we were there for 10 months, and they recommended that she go, and I took her to the National Children's Hospital. And the plan was for me to return. My father-in-law is a medical doctor, and so I took my daughter to get help, and then we would return to Tamale. So Pastor and my son and daughter, the others, stayed because we had the belief that it shall be well. As it says in 2 Kings chapter 4, it shall be well. And it took me a long time to accept that it shall be well when everything's not so good. Impanium na wakase obosme kotre benam brebe bekonifie. Little by little, day by day, I began to come back to God. The chameleon, obosme kotre?
Yeah, can obosme kotre? Abosma kotre de dia, sa kan biu. Abosma ko tere twaso.
Enam bre bre
Yeah.
bekonifie. It's
Sir.
bre bre now nekonifie. So
Yes.
it's a proverb that we learned,
Yes.
and it gave me the courage that little by little we will know God's will.
What happened about your daughter's situation, and how did you ended like finally coming back to the United States?
Well, it happened in Sierra Leone, but
Mm,
we had planned a trip to Liberia, Konola. We had lived in Liberia for 6 years, and there was a reunion at our school. So we drove to Liberia, but she really was too ill. And so, we were in Liberia, and Pastor went to North Ghana to interview. In other words, she was too sick to go back to Sierra Leone. So I stayed with the 3 children
mm,
in Liberia. Pastor went to interview in Ghana,
mm.
and he was offered the position to be the president of the mission in Ghana, Tamale. And
I see.
so we decided that we would go because we knew Ghana. We'd already lived there for 4 years, and I
Mm,
trusted the doctors and the Korlebu Hospital, and then Dr. Beidou and Bekwai. And
mhm,
so we decided to go ahead and accept the invitation to go to Ghana. But 10 months later, um, she wasn't well enough for us to stay. And
mm,
we had our second military takeover, and there were medicines were running out, and the doctor told me you need to take her back to the United States. And
mm.
so I traveled with her by myself in December of 78, 1978.
All right.
And Pastor, we wanted to stay in Ghana. So Pastor, my son was going to school on the military base in Tamale. My daughter was at Tomasco. I actually been teaching at Tomasco. So I went to the States, and the National Children's Hospital, after a certain length of time, actually several weeks, they told me that she will never get well.
Wow.
So the church invited Pastor and my other 2 children to return to the U.S.
Wow. So let me ask this. The moment the doctor told you your daughter is not going to be well, how did you feel at that moment?
Frankly, I didn't believe it.
Okay.
And I believe in God, and I believe that the woman of Shunem in 2 Kings chapter 4, her son died in her lap. She felt his breath go out of him, and she said, "It shall be well." So in
Mm,
my mind, it shall be well. This is going to be fine. I will take my daughter to the Children's Hospital, National Children's Hospital. My father-in-law is a medical doctor. She can stay with grandma and grandpa, and I will return to Ghana to complete our tour. That was the plan. I really believed that would happen.
What about your daughter herself? Did she hear that news? How did she handle it?
I don't know that at that point she understood it.
Okay. How old was
It
she?
15.
15. Okay.
Yeah, but you see, the duck embryo coming from Holland was contaminated,
Mm,
and they told me she had encephalitis, which is
mm,
an inflammation of the brain, and
mm.
that there were other things going on, and that they didn't give me much hope, actually. Some of the people who took the vaccine from the duck embryo from Holland actually died.
Wow. Wow. I want to ask this. What is her condition now? Has it still affected her till now?
Yes.
Wow.
But
Tell us how
got
you.
well, but she got well, and she got married, and she has 3 children. In fact, I have, because of that, I also have 2 great grandchildren,
Hmm,
and she was doing fine. And about, I would say, 20 years ago,
mhm.
um, she went into a crisis again, and she's in an assisted care home here in Berrien Springs, Michigan.
Wow. Now, let's move to this aspect. I know so last week you gave us a little hint about what happened to your husband.
Mm.
Today we want to see how the whole thing played out. How did it happen? The
I'm
accident.
I'm the oldest of 7 children,
Okay.
and I spent all those years in West Africa.
Mm,
My youngest brother on my father's side
mm,
contacted me, and he said, "You're always gone. I'm
mm,
getting married, and I'm
mm,
going to get married while you're still in the country." So I, I just, they're not Seventh-day Adventists.
Mm.
And I visited every 2 or 3 or 4 years when we come back and forth. And I really wanted to attend my brother's wedding.
Mm.
And Jeannie, my eldest daughter, was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And my second daughter and my son, we decided that we would drive from the hospital where we were the whole day to
Mm-hmm.
reach Detroit, Michigan, where the wedding would take place.
Mm.
And we were 8 miles from Dearborn,
Mm.
and I would have to say probably further away because as we were driving, people were getting sleepy and talking. And then my daughter from the back seat, Akuya Manu, she leaned over and she said, "You're getting old." And her father said,
So you or your husband?
my daughter told her father, his daughter said, "You're getting old." And he says, "I'm not old. I'm only 40. And I've done this and this, and I've been to India. I've been to over 40 countries. We've been in Ghana." And he started talking and talking, and they started talking. She says, "But I don't know what I'd do if somebody close to me died."
Your daughter made that statement.
Yes. And then the car got really quiet.
Hmm.
And a few minutes later, the back right tire circled out, and we
Hmm.
pulled off on the side of the freeway.
Hmm.
And father and son went down the road to look where the nearest exit would be. And he came back and he said it was too far. Now, for Ghanaians, this is a little hard for them to understand. But
Hmm.
my husband was a pastor,
Hmm.
and he prepared sermons and classes and counseled and prayed and all of those things. But I'm the one that fixes things,
Hmm.
the wife. Okay. So he came back to the car and he said, "I'm sorry, Jeanette, but you're going to have to change the tire." And
Wow.
so I said, "Okay." So I got out, put on my coat, and my son was sitting on the hillside by this time. My daughter was scooted over in the back seat looking out through the back window. And Pastor moved the suitcase and I could get the lug wrench. And just as I reached for the lug wrench, a car came across 4 lanes and
Hmm.
hit where we were standing.
Wow.
And I had a lot of blood all over me, but I looked down. I didn't even fall. And I
Hmm.
looked down, and Pastor's shoe was on the road beside me.
Hmm.
And at Bekwai, we did a temperance play that was a murder trial where the car hit a drunk driver, hit somebody, and their shoe was left on the road. And when I
Hmm.
saw Pastor's shoe, it was like,
Flashback.
yes, yes. Later, I found out I fractured 5C in my neck and I had a lot of cuts and everything, but I was standing. I was
Hmm.
standing. And I really believe that Pastor saw the car coming and
Mm-hmm.
went and stopped me from getting hurt.
I
It just,
see.
so I stood there. But actually, he was hit again because we were on the freeway. So
Wow.
he passed away on the road. He died within a minute right there. And it was really hard.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
anyway,
Wow. That's very sad. And I thank God that you still strong. At that particular moment, I don't want to talk about that so much, but at least we need to get something out of this story.
I can
Uh,
tell.
yeah, what happened to your children at that on that still roadside, even before the police and the ambulance came? What did you do?
Um, they could see their father, but I couldn't because I'm behind the cars and they're 50 feet in front of me and the cars are in front of me and I couldn't see him. And when the police came and then other cars stopped, I said, "No, I have to find my husband. I have to find my husband." And
Hmm.
and the policeman looked at me and he said, "For the sake of your children, get in the car."
Hmm.
So they both saw their father hit and killed on the
Wow.
road.
That is so sad. All right. Uh,
Now, I
okay.
mean, you ask about my children. I mean, it's anyway. You asked the questions. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Tell.
was going to say that at that point my son was 10
Mhm.
and my daughter was 13, the other daughter, and as we went through the next days and the weeks, my daughter said to me, she said, "Mom, think about that young man. He was only in his 20s. Think about him. He was just a young man, the person who was driving the car that hit us." My son said he wanted to be by himself, and he just went alone. And even when we returned after the funeral, he just didn't want to talk at all. And I tried to help him and talk to him, but he didn't want to talk at all. Several weeks went by, and I took him to a pancake house, and he looked up and he said, "God is lucky." I didn't say anything. And he said, "If he had taken both my parents, I would not love him." So later, many, many years later, a Kuya man who told me, my second daughter, told me, she said, "Mom, I lost my best friend when my sister got sick. Then I lost my dad.
Wow.
And then, because I know what happened. I had a daughter who was very ill, and the church only helped with 1 year. And so I had to find a way to pay for the medical bills, to take care of her, and I focused on her. So in a sense, my other daughter and my son also lost their mother.
Wow.
And I never thought of it that way, but my granddaughter from my son is now 18. And my son told me when she turned 15, he told me, he says, "Mom, I now understand. If Louisa had something with her, I would do what you did too." But our family has not been the same. It's true.
All right. Let me ask you this. So for mommy, this experience is not easy.
No.
After all what you did back in Africa to help, and coming back with your daughter being sick, and in the course of this process, you lose your husband. Did you ask God? Did you ask God some questions? Were there a time you tempted to even doubt the nearness of God?
I will have to tell you, it's embarrassing, but I'm a pastor's wife, a sophomore, they call me. But I would say for 3 or 4 years, I was not at peace at all. And I went back to when I was 2.5 years old, and I was in the hospital for 3 months. I was not expected to live. The last night after my surgery, they took out my appendix, part of my stomach, part of my intestines. They told my mom they were really sorry. They thought maybe I had poliomyelitis. They couldn't help me. I would not live through the night. And at that moment, my mother was in church. Her uncle was the pastor of the church, my great uncle. So the La Crescenta Church in California had prayer every hour through the night. And my mom said, "If you let her live, I will dedicate you to your service." She promised God that promise, right? And she always reminded me of that, even though when I was 5, my mother left the church, my father stopped going to church. I never knew the Adventist church. I never knew the Bible until I was 12. But I knew that my mom had promised me to serve God, but I wasn't sure what that was going to mean. But when I was 12, I was invited to visit a Seventh-day Adventist church. My sister and I went to the Adventist church. Someone handed me a quarterly and said, "Will you tell the mission story next week?" And so I agreed. Then someone told my relatives, my mother's Adventist relatives, that they found my mom, because my mom had run away with 2 girls, me and my sister. And those relatives sent me to church school. Now, I'm in a big junior high school. I finished 7th grade. I'm 3rd highest in the honor roll. And now I have to wait for an old, unpainted army bus and go to this church school I know nothing about. And I got a C in Bible. That is not a good grade. Yes. And I'm an A student. So my mother made us go to bed on time. And I used to do things like babysitting and other things to earn money. She used to tell me, "You put your nickel in to get your quarter out." So I had to do my work. And I bought a flashlight And after everyone's asleep, then I would turn on my flashlight under the covers and I said, I'm going to read this book. And I started from Genesis to Revelation, and I read it and I practiced it so much so that even like tonight they were talking about tithe in the panel about bringing things. And I thought, yep. I even was saving money to buy a sweater, and someone gave me a sweater, so I tied the sweater. I mean, I read the Bible and I took it for real. I tell you this background for you to know that when this happened to my daughter and then happened to my husband, I was like, okay, this book is not real. This isn't really real. And I started reading again. I was a religion major undergrad. I was planning to be a Bible worker. So I know the Bible and I know the spirit of prophecy. In fact, Ellen White says we should not rehearse our troubles. So I'm trying not to rehearse my troubles, but I want you to know if you are facing trouble, that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to cry. You have to cry. I learned you have to take that first uncertain step. I'm from Glendale, California. We have bag ladies. I could live on the sidewalk and cry, but it's better to sit on the curb and cry and then take that first uncertain step to experience faith. And so, yes, this was not fair. It was not fair to an innocent child. It was not fair to my husband, not fair to our family. And I began to read the Bible again, but not for about, anyway, a couple of years, really, Pastor. It's embarrassing. But there's just no way this couldn't be happening.
So I understand, when you read the Bible, we sometimes think that Job was okay during his ordeal. But when you read Job chapter 19, you could see how Job was saying a lot of things. God, you are treating me as if I am one of your enemies.
Exactly. Who said life is fair? Who said it's fair? That's, his message.
So I understand you, and you are not the only person who may be going through. And in fact, that is the reason why we brought you here to share this experience with us. Perhaps maybe you are also going through life experience, you lose your loved one, and sometimes you can't get the knots together. But today, we are here to encourage you. And I know that before Ms. Bryson ends our conversation, she will also give you her last encouragement. So at what point, so for Mommy, did you finally say, let me get back on track? Time Bena, oh yeah, healed. At what point?
It's almost 3 years later, actually. It took a long time because I had the church let me down. I was no longer the wife of a tall, handsome man with 3 lovely children. I had a daughter in the hospital. My husband was gone. I'm in a state that's not my own. And so I moved back to California, and I started attending San Diego State University. The church had said since I had a bachelor's degree that I didn't need their help. I was employable. So I didn't get money from them. So I went to San Diego State, and I still don't know who it is, but someone at San Diego State took my name to the Seroptimus Women's Business Club in San Diego County, and they invited me to speak. And as I shared, I realized that I need to share positive. I need to share there is a God. And I struggled, how do I know there's a God? And just to tell you the end of the story to that group, they paid my master's degree at San Diego State University.
Wow.
This Women's Seroptimus Club. And that's, God has sent people into my life each time there's some crisis. And there are many crises in my life that I'm not sharing due to all of this. But God always sends someone into my life, whether it's Dr. Paul Yaboa, Pastor Boateng, Pastor Anthony Yaboa, Daniel Opoku Boateng. These people have all come into my life at just the moment when I needed them. And so I realized as I was finishing my degree at San Diego State that I really need to understand what it means to serve God. And I think I told you I don't like the term missionary, because for me, I came to realize that anyone with God's love in their heart has a mission to share that love, and it's with the person right next to them. You don't have to go to a foreign country to share God's love. And as I began sharing and realizing I was in a parents group at the hospital where my daughter was still in the hospital. Yeah, she spent most of the first 10 years in the hospital, by the way. And I lost my house and my savings to pay for it. But the state took over and that took care of the finances. But we changed parents. So, like, I could visit somebody else's child and then they would visit my child. And these are all teenagers now. I mean, we're talking 17, 18 years old.
Mm.
And the person who came to my house to visit and to encourage me, they just made me laugh. I know that sounds weird. And I was like, Pastor used to laugh. He used to say stuff that was joking and everything. And I was like, I have to stop this. I have to stop it. And so until you do, you won't get well. You have to say, okay, I've shed my tears. I'm going to step off the curb. I'm going to take that first uncertain step. And what helped me take that step is I tried to think back of the last time I had evidence that there was a God.
Mm.
And so I thought of a time, I don't know how much time we have, but I thought of a time in Ghana when we were having a coup. There was no food. And I had done, I mean, my the pantry shelves with the screen, and each leg is in a tin with kerosene to keep the insects out. And then you have a place where you can hang your plantain and bananas and all of that. Everyone, I hope, listening knows. So that morning I fixed food, and my two girls went to the local school to go to school. The pastor went to the secondary school to teach Bible class. My young son was playing in the house, and I knelt on the kitchen floor and I just said, Lord, you brought us here, and you know that we need to have food. There is nothing in the cupboard. It's empty. The pantry is empty. I can't go to the market because of the soldiers. There's nobody in the market. The shopkeepers are burying the tin that would be 1 CD today, would be 10 CDs tomorrow. So there was nothing. And so I just knelt on the floor and I said, Lord, you brought us here. I know you want us to be here. I need food for lunch. And I got up and I started cleaning the house. And then I heard pop, 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 pop. And I looked, knock, knock, yeah, sorry. And there were two girls at the door with these big pans on their head with all kinds of food. I mean, unbelievable.
Wow.
And I was like, so I invited them in and they went into the dining room with me. They put the pans on the dining room table. And I'm like, Niboasain. And this one girl looked at me and she said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, I am so sorry. Am I supposed to know you? And she said, yes. She said, and it's too long, but the point is, this girl had been in the field with her brothers and sisters, and they had been cutting, and the machete had cut 4 fingers, and they had wrapped it in cloth, maybe 8, 9, 10 children, walking on the road in like a knot of kids, just crying. So I stopped my car, a little Volkswagen, and I got out and, asked what was happening, and they told me. So I told them to get in, and behind the back seat, in the back seat, in the front seat, no seatbelt law in those days, and somebody on this side, somebody on this side in the front, and we went to the clinic. And of course, children were making noise, so they chased everybody out, and I held the girl's hand while the doctor sewed those fingers on. And months later, the very day that there is no food, in the middle of a coup that was now taking place, the mother of this girl sent her and a friend or another daughter, I don't remember anyway, to bring all this food to say thank you. Thank you. And then she showed me her fingers. They were all sewed back on, working and fine.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's the last time I really had evidence that God is in my life. So I have to believe in him. I have to.
So, Mame, thank you so much for sharing all this story with us. And
but Pastor, that's not the end.
I know. All right. Go ahead. You want to complete or?
I would like to if I could, because what I learned is that I needed to remember that God was in my life, that he performs miracles. He still performs miracles. I can even tell you some in the last months. I had to find I started, like I said, reading the Bible, and I had to remember Even though I love shoes, my shoes wear out. The promise to the Israelites, their shoes kept for 40 years. So in the end, I had to accept that God's promises are true for the people they were made for, and God is constant. I can't just claim, if you serve me, none of these diseases will come near you. I have to claim that there is a God, there is heaven, there is Jesus, there is a second coming. And many of the things that I could share with you from Ghana support that, like the Kwesia Boshe, the cultural wedding, the bridegroom. There is a God. And those of you who are suffering, just know, read the Bible, find the text for you, find the Bible story that fits you. Think about the last time that you had an answer to prayer that only God could have answered. And don't lose faith. Don't lose faith. And I know what Pastor's going to say, and I know that it's true, but I also know, say yedi adjeni achiri yebeshri frau. And we have drained the vulture, so I'm sorry. But thank you for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mame Bryson. But you give us your last words before we time is fast spent. I think today we oversee our time. But let me give a quick summary.
Yes, please in tree, because everything was profocasa.
Yes. So for Mame actually acquire Nikun Efrimu, Nikun was just 40 years or more back Ghana or more Konya wedding. Now more tie car a pie not there was a much in the car no time. Nanas of Mame Eka Bibi say so for the preaching other activities no yet now or no of Mame is who could change tie.
I'm sorry.
Or no fie some Nema SS or no fixing no could change tie no. Now in the process so or change tie no or who yan say emoja appeting a gunatadim. Just a car, Nicholas APA free car, ni mood no car. Also, oh, Senator, a baby, Yana free hop, na car, no, a ball, no, you call my car for Frossa and fan or soon tea, or seen a Nimuano, Nikon, a wee, a woman, a manocra, a win. It was very hard for almost 3 years. Now, oh, Busan Yanko Pong say, why, yes, some more may buy IRA, yeah, Bahasin Swa. My wife from Mikun S7 or your pastor or any other worker. And why do you allow all this to happen to us? So for Mame Bryson, I shared the painful experience I'll come. Now, I may say the no pie or some of the experience or come ewo Ghana, or bro Madrian Essan, not only any that's one or more bomb pie we are the Mamadiani, no be a bob puma or more the contain a Dianima or more at the Abreno. And then Yankupon experience be on your film no. After 3 years, so for Mame Eba back. You know what I say? God is still there. Nti emfa hone de ukom Yankupon ewo ebia wutie right now. Once dofu be in cases of Mame, you don't know, I lost my father just last month, January.
Oh, sorry.
And my mom is also a widow now, so I understand your situation. Maybe I also did to say me, I never expected my dad to die at that age. But also maybe I also lose your family member be, and you are going through the pain. Sometimes you tend to even doubt God. So my message on Marco Ghana cause summa brain I mean how we to the banner across asset now and call cry and the banner assisted living. But in all, no, was say God is still there. No, and it's my prayer. Say at least when you be free, so for my Janet Bryson experience and showing na encounter na cause work na we believe say on the resurrection morning, no, we are going to see Pastor Bryson again. I am going to see my dad again, and you are also going to see any loved one there. That is our only hope.
We have lots of videos for you. Please subscribe to our channel, Jay's and Family Ministry.